And if he wants to reach some of the goals he has for himself as a player. And I think to Dumars's credit, like Zion really took that to heart. A lot of that transformation began, I would say, like last year. He started taking his body and his preparation really seriously. They did a lot of work with Daniel Bove, who recently just left him for the Philadelphia Flyers, to get Zion in incredible physical shape. And then they continued that work this summer. And Zion picked up a new personal trainer, Chris Cripps. Sorry, I struggle to say his name because it's basically Chris twice. But and Zion's all bought in on what it takes to be a high performing professional, and he set a new streak for consecutive games played. He's had 2 injuries this season that he's come back from ahead of schedule, which is like entirely unprecedented. His trainers got him going in that right track, and so there's a lot of, I think, mutual trust between the organization and Zion now that, hey, like things are trending in the right direction. And ultimately, to me, I see that turning into an extension. I see that because Zion, one thing I can tell you from speaking to people that are knowledgeable about how he feels, he really wants to be in New Orleans, and he really, really wants the narrative on him to flip. Like, I think he's genuinely hurt that the narrative on him is that he's uncaring, that he's lazy, that he doesn't try. He wants to change that narrative, and prove to people that he can be this star that he was billed at, and he can do it consistently by staying on the court. Like that's his biggest goal right now.
Yeah, and I think last week he had an interview with ESPN where he kind of echoed that sort of sentiment that New Orleans is where he wants to be. I wanted to bring something up about Zion. I know you said it right there that the availability has and his durability has been a big part in the reason for the team's direction the last 5 or so years. But one thing I was thinking was, yes, Brandon Ingram was an all-star. However, they never went out and got him a running mate or a true co-star like they repeatedly did for Anthony Davis, in terms that they had Drew Holiday. They went out and got Boogie. I know Boogie was where they were able to take advantage of an opportunity to get a player of that caliber as well. They did a great job of developing these secondary pieces outside of Brandon Ingram with Herb Jones, Trey Murphy. Do you think that philosophy was a result of the prior regime maybe being hesitant or reluctant to go all in without Zion being fully healthy? And now with Joe Dumars, this is his third team technically, or second team. He was longtime Pistons guy, now here with the Pelicans. You think this is maybe his envisioning to actually invest into Zion, unlike they've done in the last X years of his career?
I mean, look, like if they were going all in on the Zion Williamson timeline, they would not have drafted 2 rookies this past season. And I think there are certain trades that happened this year. You look at Trae Young, you look at Anthony Davis, you look John Morant's on the market. Those are similar to that DeMarcus Cousins situations where you have all NBA level talent that might be available at a cost that is not typical for that level of talent. And they didn't bite on any of those. Now, that's not to say like, they don't bite on John Morant this summer. It seems unlikely, but that one's still out there. But to answer your question, this was a show me that we can believe in you type of season for Zion. And I think that's what the management's looking at it from. And I think to your question about David Griffin and his approach with Zion, I don't think Zion really gave them any real reason to commit the kind of resources that they committed to Anthony Davis under Dell Demps. Davis, while he was in and out of games, like he was still mostly healthy for the duration of his Pelicans career. And he was way more professional in how he approached the game. And I think more impactful as well. I think Davis, during his peak in New Orleans, was playing at a top 3 player level. Maybe I'm biased, but I think a lot of the analytics also like pointed to Davis being at least, top 5 level impact. And that is when you have that level of player who can be in the conversation for MVP and is a first team all NBA player. Yes, you can take bigger swings and you should invest in them more strongly. When you have a player who his average like 35 games a year. I don't know if that's the exact number. It's close to it. You can't take those type of swings. And I think, Griffin and them never really had that proof of concept from Zion outside of, 20, 30 game stretches where he would look unbelievable, but that would be it. Davis made all NBA teams, made all defensive teams. Zion's made an all-star team twice, but he's never, had any kind of postseason awards or any postseason appearances to match Davis.
Just with Zion, if you were to with the you think it's going to be an extension, how many years and how much do you think he'll get?
So he'll be eligible for 3 years, and I think at that 30% rate, the cap is going to be the cap is rising at an unprecedented rate right now because of the new TV deal, but he'll be eligible for 30% of that cap as his max. And even though with the extension rules, it'll be 140% of his $42 million final year or something like that. It basically puts him in the range of 3 years, $200 million, which is an absurd amount to think about. I don't think he's going to get anywhere close to that amount. I don't think he should get anywhere close to that amount. I also think it's a debate if you should get an extension at all. But if I were to be doing that extension, I would model it after Julius Randle's extension. It was around 3 years, $100 million or so. Around $30 to $35 million a year, I think is a good sweet spot for Zion, and it should still have injury protections. I don't think it needs the weight clauses. I think you can do away with that, but I think it should still have injury protections. But he can't get more than 3 years right now. That's the length. So at least the Pelicans are limited in terms of that.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I don't think he's going to get the max, but I do believe they could end up getting maybe a cost-controlled contract that, if everything bodes well with what you're saying, maybe in a year or two, we're looking at one of the better deals in the NBA. Sort of like how Andrew Wiggins was when he was on a more expensive contract when he got traded to the Timberwolves, and then they ended up signing him to, I think, $20 million average annual value, and that ended up being one of the better contracts for a player of Wiggins' caliber. To you, do you think anyone realistically sees Jordan Poole, DeJounte Murray, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Sadiq